So because I'm a Marvel shill, I pre-ordered Marvel's Avengers for PS4. For the record, I got the deluxe edition at GameStop because I want my early access and I want my goddamn pins. I've been playing Avengers for about 3 days now, given, the beta lasted only 3 days, and I've beaten just about every mission. I've gotten a few hours in with all 4 playable characters, so I think I'm ready to give my quick thoughts. This will be sectioned out because I know this is a game some people will only want to hear some things about. The only thing I haven't done is online multiplayer, as none of my friends pre-ordered this game, and I just don't really like playing with randoms online. I'll also be tying each of the 4 playable heroes into some elements of the game that I'd like to critique. The story was probably the biggest selling point for me personally on this game. Since I played all 3 story missions with my girlfriend watching, I got to bounce ideas and observations off of her, and one thing I brought up was that the general setup has a lot of similarities to Avengers Endgame. Both feature a relatively new foe delivering a catastrophic blow to the Avengers and the world, in which lives are lost, heroes die, and the world being forever changed. 5 years later, the disbanded Avengers come back together after a newer member of the team brings to light new information that could help save the world. We've seen the A-Day demo for about a year, so I won't talk much on it story-wise outside of the fact that it's just a good setup, and I really like it. The 2 subsequent story missions with Hulk and Miss Marvel were fun and well-designed. I was surprised at how naturally these 2 characters played off each other, and how quickly the game was willing to jump into somewhat darker affair, with the Inhuman cure being shown to actually work, but it causes a lot of suffering in the process. I also really liked how the beta catches you up on the clearly edited out portions of the story so that you get the true experience of those levels. Overall, it's a story that shows a lot of promise, and since this is a single-player first experience, it seems the team at Crystal Dynamics have put a lot of effort into telling the best Avengers story they can tell. I still can't decide whether making Kamala Khan the main character is a good thing, but I'll say that she's a great character in the comics who deserves some exposure, and the idea of an Avengers story being told from the perspective of an Avengers fangirl who's trying to get the band back together is a really good one. When the full game comes out, expect that video to have a full in-depth analysis and critique of the story. I want to do Cap and Thor as one segment here since they're only playable in the A-Day mission and very briefly. Thor, as many pointed out, plays a lot like Kratos in God of War. One thing that seemed concerning from the footage was whether or not Mjolnir would have enough weight and impact behind it, but it feels just right in the gameplay. Particularly when you throw it at oncoming enemies and just send them flying. I didn't really mess around with his flight controls, but I imagine they're similar to Iron Man's. Captain America felt weird, which kinda sucks because Cap's always been my favorite Avenger, and he was the one I was most stoked to try out. His combat and shield throw were fun, but my problem is with his intrinsic ability. Okay, so all the characters in the game have a meter that lets you do certain things by holding down the right trigger. Iron Man uses it to power various weapons and do his parry, Hulk increases damage and armor with his rage, etc. But Cap's is just... it's just blocking. And he can't even move, and it just totally kills the flow of combat. Otherwise, he's okay. Looking forward to playing both of them in the full game, since these were the 2 characters I was most hyped to play as. Hulk is the character I've spent most time with, as both story missions seem to have more Hulk content than Miss Marvel, and he has the main attraction from me, the Abomination boss fight. I was really excited for this boss fight, and I can't say I was necessarily disappointed, more so that I just wanted more. He isn't particularly hard, and I actually got him on my first try. You really just gotta pummel him to death and be sure to dodge his attacks. Remember to use the rage meter that makes you mostly invincible, and you're straight. It's definitely not a bad boss fight, and it's certainly not the boss fight from the Incredible Hulk game, but I would have liked a little bit more strategy. And just saying, it's not supposed to have strategy, it's a Hulk boss fight, so it's in character for him, is just a bad excuse for a poorly done boss fight. Take a look at the Taskmaster fight from earlier. You dodge and shoot him, and then you fight him normally. Then it becomes a game of parrying each other before you one-up him with your invisibility. It's pretty good stuff. Hulk is my favorite character so far, but he's also emblematic of a lot of my problems. His combat is good, and he feels strong, which is a very good thing, but it tends to devolve into a bunch of button mashing unless you're a sadist like me who enjoys specifically picking up robots and using them like nunchucks. He feels very heavy, which is good in combat, but terrible in the traversal. His run speed feels so similar to his walk speed that I actually forgot I can do it sometimes. Meanwhile, his jumps don't feel like they gain momentum beyond the second jump. Like, okay, you jump once and it's kind of small, and then you jump a second time and it's a lot bigger, but every jump beyond that is identical to the second jump. It makes me want to use him a lot less in the more explorable missions, like when you get to go to Manhattan. His wall jumps feel good on the side-to-side traversal, but whenever I have to jump up vertically, I just don't feel like I'm getting high enough. 420 joke not intended. Overall, some minor tweaks to his traversal would make me forgive his combat. Iron Man is another character I've spent a lot of time with by choice, mostly because I wanted to play the Hulkbuster, and man, it does not disappoint. The goal of the Hulkbuster is that he should feel like he's stronger than the Hulk, which, obviously, but it's kind of hard to nail. Fortunately, this game definitely pulls it off. I am never going to get tired of rocket tackling and slamming a robot or doing the go-to-sleep jackhammer fist in a mech pilot's face. I also think it's cool how anyone can use it once you call it in, which is a huge plus for team play. Iron Man himself is fun to play on the ground and in the air, and using the hover controls and combo system makes switching between the two very fluid and fun. I also really like switching between the 3 ranged weapons on the fly for some combo mix-ups, and definitely give combat a lot of cinematic appeal. My only complaint with the game's combo system is that I'm never incentivized to get creative with how I utilize ranged weapons. Take Arkham, for example, which I know is a really obvious one, but bear with me. In those games, especially in the challenge modes, you'll get extra points for using your different gadgets and different styles of takedown. Hell, even just seeing the combo counter on screen would make some people feel good. The only incentive I was ever given was that the meter for my ranged weapons would charge up as long as I kept landing light attacks in quick succession, but unlike, say, the Hulk or Ms. Marvel, that meter charges up on its own for Tony, because his ranged weapons are so integral to the way you play him. I also often forgot that Tony could even counter enemies, as I did with all of the other characters, since most of them have a counter ability. On the complete flip side, I really like Tony's skill tree, as his primarily revolves around his 3 different ranged weapons and enhancing their abilities, both as actual ranged weapons and as heavy attacks. In a way, it reminds me of Prototype 2's combat system, where you could have 2 weapons equipped at once and switch between them quickly, just without the weapon wheel. Overall, I'm happy with Tony's combat, but his flight is the polar opposite. His hover is okay because, as we all know, having the high ground is an automatic win, but actually flying and shooting requires your aim to be way too precise. And when using it as a means of traversal, it doesn't nearly feel as fast as it should. No wonder Captain America died. I'd be better off driving a reliant Robin to get from A to B. Kamala is intended to be the star of the show here, and I gotta say, I really like playing as her. She feels like a combination of all the characters in her combat, which the devs specifically stated was the intent. She has something similar to Hulk's Rage Meter, her signature move is a lot like Thor's Hammer Spin, her traversal is a lot like Black Widow's, hell, it's almost identical, and her powers give her a good range in her combos, a lot like Iron Man. The best thing is that her personality comes through in her combat. Every attack feels like it has a youthful energy and charm to it, and all the characters have this. Natasha hits with a sense of grace and elegance, Tony is very flashy and is constantly cracking jokes, and Hulk, well, Kamala's character model also looks really good. The main complaint from fans when the first trailer came out was that the character models didn't look very good or polished, so they were all polished and touched up in some regard. Hell, Black Widow got a complete and total makeover. Grace, my girlfriend, who hasn't really played anything outside of Mario, noted that Kamala's hair had some really nice physics to it, which is good, as my main complaints with the character models were that some of the hair and fabric textures weren't as nice and flowy as I would have liked. Which still kind of holds true for Thor's cape, I can't excuse that shit. I also really like the way she's characterized in the brief cutscenes we get with her. She's still the fun, quirky fangirl that comic fans know, but there's a lot of hints at a deeper internal struggle. Pairing her with Bruce was a really smart choice, the person who just got her powers and feels like a complete and total freak, and the guy who's been struggling for years with his powers and is trying to assure her that she's not. Kamala is being sold as the protagonist of this game, so I'm incredibly interested to see how her story unfolds when the full game comes out. Natasha is a bit of a mixed character for me. Her main ground combat doesn't feel as nice as the others, but her aerial combat feels very fluid. This is partly because, much like Tony, she can alternate between ground and air combat with ease due to her grapple hook, which feels a lot like Spider-Man's Web Strike in Web of Shadows. It lets you seamlessly transition from ground to air without even thinking about it most of the time. Her heroics are by far the best in the game, as all three always have a purpose, which is good because I honestly still can't figure out what Hulk's support heroic does, and I rarely ever have a reason to use Kamala's healing one. Turning invisible can make your whole team invisible, which gives you and them opportunities to escape, or for just free damage. Also, an invisible Hulkbuster is one of the most terrifying things I can think of. When you hit with Widow's Bite, it hits hard and is a good way to stun enemies, and her ultimate makes you feel like Darth Maul for a minute, which has some fun combos and such. Her ranged weapons all feel distinct and useful, and her traversal isn't terrible, as it's basically the same as Kamala's. She just feels somewhat underpowered compared to the others, and I can't really place my finger on why. Natasha's selection of cosmetics are the best of the four, with a good variety of visually distinct skins you can buy or earn. Which, slight concern, but the in-game currency will be able to be bought with real money when the actual game comes out, which can then be used to pay your way through the challenge card, which is kind of like a battle pass. If these were just cosmetic items on the challenge card, I'd be fine, but resources and currency can be obtained through this, which means, that you're going to be able to upgrade gear, which kind of makes this pay to win. Hopefully the devs alter this before launch. So far, it's confirmed that Hawkeye will be the second of 4 heroes joining the game over the coming months, with Spider-Man being added in as a PS4 exclusive. I told myself I really wouldn't talk about that because I'm not interested in getting into the controversy surrounding it, but come on. When Xbox players get exclusive shit, we don't really complain, we just kind of stay quiet. When PlayStation gets exclusive shit in other games, there's really no complaints. Just accept it and move on. Since I'm on PlayStation, I'm personally excited for Spider-Man. But y'all honestly just gotta chill. It's just a video game. Stop taking it so seriously. I'm very hopeful for the future of this game, and I'm interested to see what other characters Crystal Dynamics plans to add down the line. Realistically, I'm thinking Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Ant-Man are going to be joining, since those characters are kind of the face of the MCU right now, or at least they're set up to be. But I wouldn't say no to Doctor Strange and Falcon being added as well. Overall, Marvel's Avengers seems a competent live service game with fun gameplay, distinct and entertaining characters, and a promising story, but it's ultimately somewhat hampered and bogged down by a little bit of a lack of polish, a scarcity in some gear, and some concerns with the game's microtransactions. For the time being, I'm going to give the Marvel's Avengers beta an 8 out of 10. I hope to see you all assembled here again when I cover the full game, which will probably be out in maybe October or November, depending on how long I want to take. Until then, this has been Chimera Films. I've been Steven. You've been awesome, and I'll speak to you guys later. Peace out. Ah, fuck, I forgot to mention that the helicarrier shares the same name as me. Whatever, fuck it.